Hello and welcome to Stained Glass Basics. My name is Arturo Vega and I will be showing you how to cut, grind, foil, burnish, and solder a basic stained glass design. We will be working on one of my personal designs called Peruvian bird, and this is how the final product looks. So let's get to work creating this design. I have already pre-cut a lot of these pieces because I like to make them in batches. I prefer to use scrap glass as well, so the colors end up being quite random sometimes. I find this is a good design to start out with because it is a simple suncatcher design. It really gives you the freedom to use any colors of glass you have available, and it looks very nice on a window or in the light. We are going to be using some green glass, orange glass, blue glass, yellow glass, and red glass for this project. Next, let's talk about the tools we're going to be using. We have the big breakers, grocers, the small breakers, and running pliers, which are mostly used for the actual breaking of glass. I have a few glass cutters, scores I can show you, pencil grip, pistol grip, custom grip, which is my preference. Now on to cutting glass. You want to start on one edge of the glass and then cut along the line you drew. Take your time and make sure the pressure is consistent. You may not necessarily hear a score on the glass. Not all glass is the same, and they can take different amounts of pressure to cut. I don't like to apply too much pressure, just enough to have the head come down into the glass. When you reach the other end of the glass, you take off like an airplane. Woo. We are going to use the running pliers first. Line up the line with your score and make sure the screw on top is tight enough so that it matches the thickness of the glass. Now you're going to do a slow squeeze and here for the break. Nice. After your first break, you may need to do additional breaks, and sometimes you'll need to use the breakers. I like to use my finger and my thumb to hold onto the glass and then pull apart while holding onto my scored side with the small breakers. You should only have to pull apart and not force the break. At times, you may not want to touch the glass. I like to use both breakers at the same time to help with the pulling apart breaking process. Pulling apart, not breaking apart. Very important. Once the pieces are cut, you want to proceed to the grinder. Make sure your grinder has water and a well-soaked sponge before you start the grinding process. Do not grind glass without water, as the glass dust can be very dangerous. In order to avoid cutting myself, I like to run the edges of the glass along the grinder quickly at first to get rid of any major sharp areas. Then I like to spend more time in areas that have bumps. You want the edges of the glass to be smooth and slightly gritty so that the foil can adhere to the glass once the piece is ground to your satisfaction. Make sure to clean and dry well before you move on to the next step. Next, you see me putting the birds together now that I have completed cutting and grinding the rest of the tail feathers. And once they're put together, I will show you the foiling process. I'm going to be using 3/16 silver coated foil because I'm choosing to leave the birds silver. We can change the color of the solder at the end to black or copper, and there are black coated and regular copper foil that can be used for those occasions. I like to expose the foil as I go so as to not ruin the adhesive and then break it off with my nail. You want to start out about an inch away from one of the corners. Try to center your glass piece in the middle of the foil. Best if you have the same amount of foil on both sides. Then you want to press it down and pinch it in place. Once the first anchor is on, then you can proceed to the other edge. You can choose to do a bit at a time or go the whole edge at once. Up to you. Set the foil by slowly rubbing your finger on it, activating the adhesive, and slowly pinching the sides to wrap the edge of the glass. Continue until you get back to where you started, making sure you go over your starting point until the edge. And make sure to burnish really well. You want to rub the foil into the glass with something, preferably made out of wood. You can use a fid, or you can get a special tool like mine that has a roller that makes it easy to burnish the faces of the glass. You want to make sure that all the foil is flat, no bumps. An X-Acto knife comes in handy to remove any extra overlaps or issues you may find with the foil. Just be sure to work gently, as the adhesive is not super strong yet. And now you'll see me speed foil and burnish the rest of the pieces for the bird. Once this is done and the foil has been properly burnished, you need to pin down the pieces so as to keep them stationary for the soldering process. In order to be able to solder, you need flux. This is a weak acid that is used in order to clean the copper so that the solder can attach to it. I'm using a gel flux. There are many kinds of flux. I would recommend getting one from a stained glass store to be safe. I have a small glass container I'll be putting some of the flux into and then using a brush to add the flux to the foil. I'm using a Hakko FX601 soldering iron and 60/40 solder. That's 60/40, 60% lead, 40% tin. I keep my iron at the spot between 360 and 410 degrees Fahrenheit. That's my preferred temperature for regular work with a 60/40 solder. Other types of solder may require more heat, and less heat can also be used for ornamental purposes. You want to start out by adding flux to the area you'll be soldering. Don't be shy with the flux. Add the flux to the intersection first, or at any place where the foil from one piece is touching another piece. You want to hold the soldering iron with one hand and the solder with another. There are many ways to add solder to your piece. You can grab some and place it, or you can place the solder in the foil and slowly run the iron across to melt and place it in at the same time. Make sure the solder can melt fully in between the pieces to ensure strong connections. Connecting areas always are soldered first, and once you finish one side, go ahead and let it cool, flip it over, and repeat. Once the other side is soldered, you want to add solder to the perimeter. All the outside edges must also be soldered. I like to quickly tin the edges and then add more solder slowly to the edges before flipping over and doing the same thing to the other side. Once done, we need to proceed with the outside edges. We're going to be using a special technique called beading along the edge of the glass by balancing the solder while hot and slowly melting it. After you've completed beating the outside edges, add a jump ring, making sure you're working slowly and carefully so as to not melt the solder through. Solder both sides and you're almost done. Now you can clean and polish your piece. Before cleaning, make sure the piece is not too hot. A good rule of thumb is if you can't hold your finger on the piece for 3 seconds before instinctively removing your hand because you're about to burn yourself, then it's too hot to clean. Once cool, I use Quick Clean, which is a flux remover, and spray both sides. Give it time to do its cleaning thing and then wipe it off. Reapply as needed until the piece is clean. After the cleaning is done, you can add a finishing compound to seal the glass and solder to make it last. I apply the compound with an old toothbrush and leave it alone for a while before shining. You can always repolish to get the shine back. Use a microfiber cloth and ensure nice polishing. Add a chain and we're done. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to ask any questions. Leave them in the comments and look out for the next video where we will talk about designing simple glass sun catchers. See ya!